Chapter 3, Parts 5 to 8. 5. Mr. Saunders, casting an uneasy look at the dissolving sky, let himself out the gate, and here, returning from school, was his son, saying, "Did you see his scar, Daddy? Did you see his scar?" The man stared at this troublesome small miniature of himself, and then he knelt suddenly, taking his son into his arms, folding him close. "You seen his scar?" young Robert Saunders accused, trying to release himself as the rain galloped over them through the trees. 6. Emmy's eyes were black and shallow as a toy animal's, and her hair was a sunburned shock of no particular color. There was something wild in Emmy's face. You knew that she outran, outfought, outclimbed her brothers. You could imagine her developing like a small but sturdy greenness on a dunghill, not a flower, but not dung either. Her father was a house painter with the house painter's inevitable penchant for alcohol, and he used to beat his wife. She, fortunately, failed to survive the birth of Emmy's fourth brother, whereupon her father desisted from the bottle long enough to woo and wed an angular shrew, who, serving as an instrument of retribution, beat him soundly with stove wood in her lighter moments. "Don't never marry a woman, Emmy," her father, maudlin and affectionate, advised her. "If I had it to do all over again, I'd take a man every time." "I won't never marry nobody," Emmy had promised herself passionately, especially after Donald had gone to war and her laboriously worded letters to him had gone unanswered. "And now he don't even know me," she thought dully. "I won't never marry nobody," she repeated, putting dinner on the table. "I think I'll just die," she said, staring through a streaming window into the rain, watching the gusty rain surge by like a grey yet silver ship crossing her vision, nursing a final plate between her hands. She broke her reverie, and putting the plate on the table, she went and stood without the study door, where they were sitting, watching the streaming window panes, hearing the grey rain like a million little feet across the roof and in the trees. "All right, Uncle Joe," she said, fleeing kitchenward. Before they were halfway through lunch, the downpour had ceased. The ships of rain had surged onward, drawing before the wind, leaving only a whisper in the wet green waves of leaves, with an occasional gust running in long white lines like elves, holding hands across the grass. But Emmy did not appear with dessert. "Emmy," called the rector again. Mrs. Powers rose. "I'll go see," she said. The kitchen was empty. "Emmy?" she called quietly. There was no reply, and she was on the point of leaving when an impulse bade her look behind the open door. She swung it away from the wall, and Emmy stared at her, dumbly. "Emmy, what is it?" she asked. But Emmy marched wordless from her hiding place, and taking a tray she placed the prepared dessert on it and handed it to Mrs. Powers. "This is silly, Emmy, acting this way. You must give him time to get used to us again." But Emmy only looked at her from beyond the frontiers of her inarticulate despair, and the other woman carried the tray in to the table. "Emmy's not feeling well," she explained. "I'm afraid Emmy works too hard," the rector said. "She was always a hard worker, don't you remember, Donald?" Mahone raised his puzzled gaze to his father's face. "Emmy?" he repeated. "Don't you remember Emmy?" "Yes, sir," he repeated tonelessly. 7. The window panes had cleared, though it yet rained. She sat after the men had left the table, and at last Emmy peered through the door, then entered. She rose, and together the two of them cleared the table, over Emmy's mild protest, and carried the broken meal to the kitchen. Mrs. Powers turned back her sleeves briskly. No, let me do it," Emmy objected. "You'll spoil your dress." "It's an old one, no matter if I do." "It don't look old to me. I think it's right pretty. But this is my work. You go on and let me do it." "I know, but I've got to do something or I'll go wild. Don't you worry about this dress. I don't." "You're rich. You don't have to, I guess," Emmy answered coldly, examining the dress. "Do you like it?" Emmy made no reply. "I think clothes of this sort suit people of yore and my type, don't you?" "I dunno. I never thought about it," splashing water in the sink. "I tell you what," said Mrs. Powers, watching Emmy's firm, sturdy back. "I have a new dress up in my trunk that doesn't suit me for some reason. When we get through, suppose you come up with me and we'll try it on you. I can sew a little and we can make it fit you exactly. What about it?" Emmy thought, imperceptibly. "What use would I have for it? I don't go anywhere, and I got clothes good enough to wash and sweep and cook in." "I know, but it's always well to have some dress-up things. I'll lend you stockings and things to go with it, and a hat, too." Emmy slid dishes into hot water and steam rose about her reddened arms. "Where's your husband?" she asked irrelevantly. "He was killed in the war, Emmy." "Oh," she said. Then after a while, "And you so young, too." She gave Mrs. Powers a quick, kind glance. "Sisters in sorrow. My Donald was killed, too." Mrs. Powers rose quickly. "Where's a cup towel? Let's get done so we can try that dress." Emmy drew her hands from the water and dried them on her apron. "Wait, let me get an apron for you, too." A bedraggled sparrow eyed her from the limp, glistening morning glory vine, and Emmy dropped the apron over her head and knotted the cords at the back. Steam rose again about Emmy's forearms, wreathing her head, and the china was warm and smooth and sensuous to the touch. Glass gleamed under Mrs. Powers' toweling, and a dull parade of silver took the light mutely. Hushing it as, like two priestesses, they repeated the orisons of clothes. As they passed the study door, they saw the rector and his son gazing quietly into a rain-perplexed tree, and Gilligan sprawled on his back upon a battered divan, smoking and reading. 8. Emmy, outfitted from head to heel, thanked her awkwardly. "How good the rain smells," Mrs. Power interrupted her. "Sit down a while, won't you?" Emmy, admiring her finery, came suddenly from out her Cinderella dream. "I can't. I got some mending to do. I nearly clean forgot it." "Bring your mending in here, then, so we can talk. I haven't had a woman to talk to in months, it seems like. Bring it in here and let me help you." Emmy said, flattered, "Why do you want to do my work?" "I told you if I don't have something to do, I'll be a crazy woman in 2 days. Please, Emmy, as a favor, won't you?" "All right, let me get it." She gathered up her garments, and leaving the room, she returned with a heaped basket. They sat on either side of it. "His poor huge socks," Mrs. Powers raised her encased hand. "Like chair covers, aren't they?" Emmy laughed happily above her needle, and beneath swooning gusts of rain across the roof, the pile of neatly folded and mended garments grew steadily. "Emmy," Mrs. Powers said after a time, "what was Donald like before? You knew him a long time, didn't you?" Emmy's needle continued its mute, tiny flashing, and after a while Mrs. Powers leaned across the basket and, putting her hand under Emmy's chin, raised her bent face. Emmy twisted her head aside and bent again over her needle. Mrs. Powers rose and drew the shades, darkening the room against the rain-combed afternoon. Emmy continued to peer blindly at her darning until the other woman took it from her hand. Then she raised her head and stared at her new friend with beast-like, unresisting hopelessness. Mrs. Powers took Emmy's arms and drew her erect. "Come, Emmy," she said, feeling the bones in Emmy's hard, muscular arms. Mrs. Powers knew that, lacking a bed, any reclining intimacy was conducive to confidence, so she drew Emmy down beside her in an ancient, obese armchair, and with heedless rain filling the room with hushed, monotonous sound, Emmy told her brief story. "We was in school together when he was there at all. He never came, mostly. They couldn't make him. He'd just go off into the country by himself and not come back for 2 or 3 days. And nights, too. 'Twas one night when he... Her voice died away, and Mrs. Powers said, "When he what, Emmy? Aren't you going too fast?" "Sometimes he used to walk home from school with me. He wouldn't never have a hat or a coat, and his face was like... 'Twas like he ought to live in the woods, you know? Not like he ought to went to school or had to dress up. And so you never did know when you'd see him. He'd come in school at almost any time, and folks would see him way out in the country at night. Sometimes he'd sleep in folks' houses in the country, and sometimes niggers would find him asleep in sand ditches. Everybody knew him. And then one night... How old were you then?" "I was 16, and he was 19. And then, One night, but you're going too fast. Tell me about you and him before that. Did you like him? I liked him better than anybody. When we was both younger, we dammed up a place in a creek and built a swimming hole, and we used to go in every day. And then we'd lie in an old blanket we had and sleep until time to get up and go home. And in summer, we was together nearly all the time. Then one day he'd just disappear, and nobody wouldn't know where he was. Then he'd be outside our house some morning calling me. Trouble was that I always lied to Poppy where I'd been, and I hated that. Donald always told his father. He never lied about nothing he ever did, but he was braver than me, I reckon. And then, when I was 14, Poppy found out about how I liked Donald, and so he took me out of school and kept me at home all the time, so I didn't hardly ever get to see Donald. Poppy made me promise I wouldn't go round with him anymore. He had come for me once or twice, and I told him I couldn't go. Then one day he came and Poppy was at home. Poppy ran out to the gate and told him not to come fooling round here no more. But Donald stood right up to him, not acting bad, but just like Poppy was a fly or something. And so Poppy came in the house mad and said he wasn't going to have any such goings on with his girls, and he hit me, and then he was sorry and cried. He was drunk, you see. It made me swear I would never see Donald again, and I had to. But I thought of how much fun we used to have, and I wanted to die. And so I didn't see Donald for a long time. Then folks said he was going to marry her. I knew Donald didn't care much about me. He never cared about anybody. But when I heard he was going to marry her, anyway, I didn't sleep much at night, and so I'd sit on the porch after I'd undressed lots of times, thinking about him and watching the moon getting bigger every night. And one night when the moon was almost full and you could see like day almost, I saw somebody walk up to our gate and stop there, and I knew it was Donald, and he knew I was there, 'cause he said, "Come here, Amy." And I went to him, and it was like old times, because I forgot all about him marrying her, because he still liked me to come for me after so long. And he took my hand, and we walked down the road, not talking at all. After a while, we came to the place where you turn off the road to go to our swimming hole. And when we crawled through the fence, my nightie got hung, and he said, "Take it off." And I did, and we put it in a plum bush and went on. The water looked so soft in the moonlight, you couldn't tell where the water was hardly. And we swam a while, and then Donald had his clothes too. And we went up on top of a hill. Everything was so kind of pretty, and the grass felt so good to your feet, and all of a sudden Donald ran on ahead of me. I can keep up with Donald when I want to, but for some reason I didn't want to tonight, and so I sat down. I could see him running along the top of the hill, all shiny in the moonlight, and he ran back down the hill towards a creek. And so I laid down. I couldn't see anything except the sky, and I don't know how long it was when all of a sudden there was his head against the sky over me, and he was wet again, and I could see the moonlight kind of running on his wet shoulders and arms, and he looked at me. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them somehow, like things touching me. When he looks at you, you feel like a bird, kind of, like he was going swooping right away from the ground or something. But now there was something different, too. I could hear him panting from running, and I could feel something inside me panting, too. I was afraid, and I wasn't afraid. It was like everything was dead except us. And then he said, "Emmy, Emmy," kind of like that, and then, yes, and then he made love to you. Emmy turned suddenly, and the other held her close. And now he don't even know me. He don't even know me, she wailed. Mrs. Powers held her, and at last Emmy raised her hand and pushed her hair from her face. And then Mrs. Powers prompted. And afterwards we laid there and held each other, and I felt so quiet, so good. And some cows came up and looked at us and went away, and I could feel his hand going right slow from my shoulder along my side as far as he could reach, and then back again, slow, slow. We didn't talk at all, just his hand going up and down my side, so smooth and quiet, and after a while I was asleep. Then I waked up, it was getting dawn, and I was cramped and wet and cold. Then he was gone. But I knew he'd come back, and so he did, with some blackberries. We ate 'em and watched it getting light in the east. Then when the blackberries were gone, I could feel the cold, wet grass under me again and see the sky all yellow and chilly behind his head. After a while, we went back by the swimming hole, and he put on his clothes, and we got my nightie, and I put it on. It was getting light fast, and he wanted to go all the way home with me, only I wouldn't let him. I didn't care what happened to me now. And when I went through the gate, there was Poppy, standing on the porch. She was silent. Her story seemed to be finished. She breathed regularly as a child against the other's shoulder. "And what then, Emmy?" Mrs. Powers prompted again. "Well, when I came to the porch, I stopped and he said, 'Where have you been?' And I said, 'None of your business.' Then he said, 'You whore, I'll beat you to death.' And I said, 'Touch me.' But he didn't. I think I would have killed him if he had. He went into the house and I went in and dressed and bundled up my clothes and left, and I haven't been back since either." "What did you do then?" "I got a job sewing for a dressmaker named Mrs. Miller, and she let me sleep in her shop until I could earn some money. I hadn't been there but 3 days when one day Mr. Mahone walked in. He said that Donald had told him about us and that Donald had gone to the war and that he had come for me. So I've been here ever since. So I didn't see Donald any more, and now he don't know me at all." "You poor child," Mrs. Powers said. She raised Emmy's face. It was calm, purged. She no longer felt superior to the girl. Suddenly, Emmy sprang to her feet and gathered up the mended clothes. "Wait, Emmy," she called. But Emmy was gone. She lit a cigarette and sat smoking slowly in her great dim room with its heterogeneous collection of furniture. After a while, she rose to draw the curtains. The rain had ceased, and long lances of sunlight, piercing the washed, immaculate air, struck sparks amid the dripping trees. She crushed out her cigarette, and descending the stairs she saw a strange retreating back, and the rector, turning from the door, said hopelessly, staring at her, "He doesn't give us much hope for Donald's sight. But he's only a general practitioner. We'll get a specialist from Atlanta," she encouraged him, touching his sleeve. And here was Miss Cecily Saunders, tapping her delicate way up the fast-drying path between the fresh sparkled grass. End of section 11. This recording is in the public domain. Section 12 of Soldier's Pay by William Faulkner. Read for LibriVox.org by Sandra. Chapter 3, Parts 9, 10, and 11. 9. Cecily sat in her room in pale satin knickers and a thin orange-colored sweater, with her slim legs elevated to the arm of another chair, reading a book. Her father, opening the door without knocking, stared at her in silent disapproval. She met his gaze for a time, then lowered her legs. "Do nice girls sit around half-naked like this?" he asked coldly. She laid her book aside and rose. "Maybe I'm not a nice girl," she answered flippantly. He watched her as she enveloped her narrow body in a flimsy diaphanous robe. "I suppose you consider that an improvement, do you?" "You shouldn't come in my room without knocking, Daddy," she told him fretfully. "No more I will if that's the way you sit in it." He knew he was creating an unfortunate atmosphere in which to say what he wished, but he felt compelled to continue. "Can you imagine your mother sitting in her room, half undressed like this?" "I hadn't thought about it." She leaned against the mantel, combatively respectful. "But I can, if she wanted to." He sat down. "I want to talk to you, sis." His tone was changed, and she sank onto the foot of the bed, curling her legs under her, regarding him hostilely. "How clumsy I am," he thought, clearing his throat. "It's about young Mahone." She looked at him. "I saw him this noon, you know." She was forcing him to do all the talking. Damn it, what an amazing ability children have for making parental admonition hard to achieve. Even Bob was developing it. Cecily's eyes were green and fathomless. She extended her arm, taking a nail file from her dressing table. The downpour had ceased, and the rain was only a whisper in the wet leaves. Cecily bent her face above the graceful, slender gesturing of her hands. "I say, I saw young Mahone today," her father repeated with rising choler. "You did? How did he look, Daddy?" Her tone was so soft, so innocent, that he sighed with relief. He glanced at her sharply, but her face was lowered sweetly and demurely. He could see only her hair filled with warm reddish lights and the shallow plane of her cheek and her soft, unemphatic chin. "That boy's in bad shape, sis. His poor father," she commiserated above her busy hands. "It is so hard on him, isn't it? His father doesn't know." She looked quickly up and her eyes became gray and darker still. He saw that she didn't know either. "Doesn't know?" she repeated. "How can he help seeing that scar?" Her face blanched and her hand touched her breast delicately. "Do you mean?" No, he said hastily. "I mean his father thinks that his father doesn't think. His father forgets that his journey has tired him, you see," he finished awkwardly. He continued swiftly. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. About being engaged to him? How can I with that scar? How can I?" No, not engaged to him if you don't want to be. We won't think about the engagement at all now, but just keep on seeing him until he gets well, you see." "But Daddy, I can't. I just can't." "Why, sis?" "Oh, his face, I can't bear it any more." Her own face was wrung with the recollection of a past anguish. "Don't you see I can't? I would if I could. But you'll get used to it, and I expect a good doctor can patch him up and hide it. Doctors can do anything these days. Why, sis, you're the one who can do more for him right now than any doctor." She lowered her head to her arms, folded upon the footrail of the bed, and her father stood beside her, putting his arm about her slim, nervous body. "Can't you do that much, sis? Just drop in and see him occasionally." "I just can't," she moaned. "I just can't." "Well then, I guess you can't see that far boy anymore either." She raised her head quickly and her body became taut beneath his arm. "Who says I can't?" "I say so, sis," he replied gently and firmly. Her eyes became blue with anger, almost black. "You can't prevent it. You know you can't." She thrust herself back against his arm, trying to evade it. He held her and she twisted her head aside, straining from him. "Look at me," he said quietly, putting his other hand under her cheek. She resisted. He felt her warm breath on his hand, but he forced her face around. Her eyes blazed at him. "If you can't occasionally see the man you're engaged to, and a sick man to boot, I'm damned if I'll have you running around with anybody else." There were red prints of his fingers on her cheek and her eyes slowly filled. "You're hurting me?" she said, and feeling her soft, vague chin in his palm and her fragile body against his arm, he knew a sudden excess of contrition. He picked her up bodily and sat again in a chair, holding her on his lap. "Now then," he whispered, rocking, holding her face against his shoulder. "I didn't mean to be so rough about it." She lay against him limply, weeping, and the rain filled the interval, whispering across the roof among the leaves of trees. After a long space in which they could hear dripping eaves and the happy sound of gutters and a small ivory clock in the room, she moved, and still holding her face against his coat, she clasped her father about the neck. "We won't think about it any more," he told her, kissing her cheek. She clasped him again tightly, then, slipping from his lap, she stood at the dressing table, dabbing powder upon her face. He rose, and in the mirror across her shoulder he saw her blurred face and the deft nervousness of her hands. "We won't think of it any more," he repeated, opening the door. The orange sweater was a hushed incandescence under the formal illusion of her robe, molding her narrow back as he closed the door after him. As he passed his wife's room, she called to him. "What were you scolding Cecily for, Robert?" she asked. But he stumped on down the stairs, ignoring her, and soon she heard him cursing Toby from the back porch. Mrs. Saunders entered her daughter's room and found her swiftly dressing. The sun broke suddenly through the rain, and long lances of sunlight, piercing the washed, immaculate air, struck amid the dripping trees. "Where are you going, Cecily?" she asked. "To see Donald," she replied, drawing on her stockings, twisting them skillfully and deftly at the knees. 10. Janarius Jones, lounging through the wet grass, circled the house and peering through the kitchen window saw Emmy's back and one angled arm sawing across her body. He mounted the steps quietly and entered. Emmy's stare above her poised iron was impersonally combative. Jones's yellow eyes, unabashed, took her and the ironing board and the otherwise empty kitchen boldly. Jones said, "Well, Cinderella." "My name is Emmy," she told him icily. "That's right," he agreed equably. "So it is. Emmy, Emmeline, Emmylune, Lune, La Lune en grade, aucune rancune. But does it? Or perhaps you'd prefer noir sur la lune? Or do you make finer or less fine distinctions in this? It might be jazzed a bit, you know." Elia thought so, quite successfully. But then she had a casement in which to lean at dusk and harp her sorrow on her golden hair. "You don't seem to have any golden hair, but then you might jazz your hair up a little too." This restless young generation, wanting to jazz up everything, not only their complexes, but the shapes of their behinds as well. She turned her back on him indifferently, and again her arm sawed the iron steadily along a stretched fabric. He became so still that after a while she turned to see what had become of him. He was so close behind her that her hair brushed his face. Clutching her iron, she shrieked. "Huh, my proud beauty," hissed Jones in accepted style, putting his arms around her. "Let me go," she said, glaring at him. "Your speech is wrong," Jones informed her helpfully. "Release me, villain, or it will be the worse for you, is what you should say." "Let me go," she repeated. "Not till you divulge them papers," he answered, fat and solemn, his yellow eyes expressionless as a dead man's. "Let me go or I'll burn you," she cried hotly, brandishing the iron. They stared at one another. Emmy's eyes were fiercely implacable, and Jones said at last, "Demph, I don't believe you would." "See if I don't," she said with anger, but releasing her, he sprang away in time. Her red hand brushed her hair from her hot face and her eyes blazed at him. "Get out now," she ordered, and Jones, sauntering easily toward the door, remarked plaintively, "What's the matter with you women here anyway? Wildcats. Wildcats. By the way, how is the dying hero today?" "Go on, now," she repeated, gesturing with the iron. He passed through the door and closed it behind him. Then he opened it again, and making her a deep, fattish bow from the threshold, he withdrew. In the dark hallway he halted, listening. Light from the front door fell directly in his face. He could see only the edged indication of sparse furniture. He paused, listening. No, she isn't here, he decided. Not enough talk going on for her to be here. That femme hates silence like a cat does water. Cecily in silence, oil and water, and she'll be on top of it too. Little bitch, wonder what she meant by that yesterday. And Georgie too, she's such a fast worker, I guess it takes a whole string to keep her busy. Oh well, there's always tomorrow, especially when today ain't over yet. Go in and pull the Great Dane's leg a while. At the study door he met Gilligan. He didn't recognize him at first. "Bless my soul," he said at last. "Has the army disbanded already? What would Pershing do now without any soldiers to salute him? We had scarcely enough men to fight a war with, but with a long peace ahead of us. Man, we're helpless," Gilligan said coldly. "What you want?" "Why, nothing, thank you. Thank you so much. I merely came to call upon our young friend in the kitchen and to incidentally inquire after Mercury's brother." "Whose brother?" "Young Mr. Mahone, in a manner of speaking, then." "Doctor's with him," Gilligan replied curtly. "You can't go in now." He turned on his heel. "Not at all," murmured Jones after the others departing back. "Not at all, my dear fellow." Yawning, he strolled up the hall. He stood in the entrance speculative, filling his pipe. He yawned again openly. At his right was an open door, and he entered a stuffily formal room. Here was a convenient window ledge on which to put spent matches, and sitting beside it he elevated his feet to another chair. The room was depressingly hung with glum portraits of someone's forebears, between which the principal strain of kinship appeared to be some sort of stomach trouble, or perhaps they were portraits of the ancient mariner at different ages before he wore out his albatross. Not even a dead fish could make a man look like that, thought Jones, refusing the dyspeptic gambit of their fretful painted eyes. No wonder the parson believes in hell. A piano had not been opened in years, and opened would probably sound like the faces looked. Jones rose, and from a bookcase he got a copy of Paradise Lost. Cheerful thing to face a sinner with, he thought, and returned to his chair. The chair was hard, but Jones was not. He elevated his feet again. The rector and a stranger came into his vision, pausing at the front door in conversation. The stranger departed, and that black woman appeared. She and the rector exchanged a few words. Jones remarked with slow, lustful approval, her firm, free carriage, And
here came Miss Cecily Saunders, in pale lilac, with a green ribbon at her waist, tapping her delicate way up the fast-drying gravel path between the fresh sparkled grass. "Uncle Joe," she called. But the rector had already withdrawn to his study. Mrs. Powers met her, and she said, "Oh, how do you do? May I see Donald?" She entered the hall beneath the dim, lovely fanlight, and her roving glance remarked one sitting with his back to a window. She said, "Donald," and sailed into the room like a bird. One hand covered her eyes, and the other was outstretched as she ran, with quick tapping steps, and sank before him at his feet, burying her face in his lap. "Donald, Donald, I will try to get used to it. I will try. Oh, Donald, Donald, your poor face. But I will, she repeated hysterically. Her fumbling hand touched his sleeve, and slipping down his arm, she drew his hand under her cheek, clasping it. "I didn't mean to yesterday. I wouldn't hurt you for anything, Donald. I couldn't help it. But I love you, Donald, my precious, my own." She burrowed deeper into his lap. "Put your arms around me, Donald," she said, "until I get used to you again." He complied, drawing her upward. Suddenly, struck with something familiar about the coat, she raised her head. It was Janarius Jones. She sprang to her feet. "You beast! Why didn't you tell me?" "My dear ma'am, who am I to refuse what the gods send?" But she did not wait to hear him. At the door, Mrs. Powers stood watching with interest. "Now she's laughing at me," Cecily thought furiously. Her glance was a blue dagger, and her voice was like dripped honey. "How silly of me not to have looked," she said sweetly. "Seeing you, I thought at once that Donald would be nearby. I'm sure if I were a man, I'd always be as near you as possible. But I didn't know you and Mr. Smith were such good friends, though they say that fat men are awfully attractive. May I see Donald? Do you mind?" Her anger lent her fortitude. When she entered the study, she looked at Mahon without a qualm, scar and all. She greeted the rector, kissing him. Then she turned swift and graceful to Mahon, averting her eyes from his brow. He watched her quietly, without emotion. "You have caused me to look foolish," she told him with whispered smooth fury, sweetly kissing his mouth. Jones, ignored, followed down the hall and stood without the closed door to the study, listening, hearing her throaty, rapid speech beyond the bland panel. Then, stooping, he peered through the keyhole. But he could see nothing, and feeling his creased waistline constricting his breathing, feeling his braces cutting into his stooped, fleshy shoulders, he rose under Gilligan's detached, contemplative stare. Jones' own yellow eyes became quietly empty, and he walked around Gilligan's immovable belligerence and on toward the front door, whistling casually. 11. Cecily Saunders returned home, nursing the yet uncooled embers of her anger. From beyond the turning angle of the veranda, her mother called her name, and she found her parents sitting together. "How is Donald?" her mother asked. And not waiting for a reply, she said, "George Farr phoned again after you left. I wish you'd leave a message for him. He keeps Toby forever stopping whatever he's doing to answer the phone." Cecily, making no reply, would have passed on to a French window opening upon the porch, but her father caught her hand, stopping her. "How is Donald looking today?" he asked, repeating his wife. Her unrelaxed hand tried to withdraw from his. "I don't know, and I don't care," she said harshly. "Why didn't you go there?" Her mother's voice was faintly laced with surprise. "I thought you were going there." "Let me go, Daddy." She wrenched her hand nervously. "I want to change my dress." He could feel her rigid, delicate bones, Please, she implored, and he said, "Come here, sis." "Now, Robert," his wife interposed, "you promised to let her alone." "Come here, sis," he repeated, and her hand becoming lax, she allowed herself to be drawn to the arm of his chair. She sat nervously, impatiently, and he put his arm around her. "Why didn't you go there?" "Now, Robert, you promised," his wife parroted futilely. "Let me go, Daddy." She was rigid beneath her thin, pale dress. He held her, and she said, "I did go there." "Did you see Donald?" "Oh, yes. That black, ugly woman finally condescended to let me see him a few minutes. In her presence, of course." "What black, ugly woman, darling?" asked Mrs. Saunders with interest. "Black woman? Oh, you mean Mrs. What's-her-name? Why, sis, I thought you and she would like each other. She has a good level head, I thought." "I don't doubt it. Only—" "What black woman, Cecily? Only you better not let Donald see that you're smitten with her." Now, sis, what are you talking about?" "Oh, it's well enough to talk that way," she said, taut and passionate. "But haven't I eyes of my own? Haven't I seen? Why did she come all the way from Chicago or wherever it was with him? And yet you expect me—" "Who came from where? What woman, Cecily? What woman?" "Robert." They ignored her. "Now, sis, you ain't just to her. You're just excited." His arm held her fragile rigidity. "I tell you, it isn't that. It's just her. I'd forgiven that because he's sick and because of how he used to be about girls. You know, before the war. But he has humiliated me in public. This afternoon he— "Let me go, Daddy," she repeated, imploring, trying to thrust herself away from him. "But what woman, Cecily? What is this all about, a woman?" Her mother's voice was fretted. "Sis, honey, remember he's sick, and I know more about Mrs. Powers than you do." He removed his arm, yet held her by the wrist. "Now, you, Robert, who is this woman? Think about it tonight, and we'll talk it over in the morning. No, I am through with him, I tell you. He has humiliated me before her." Her hand came free, and she sprang toward the window. "Cecily," her mother called after the slim whirl of her vanishing dress, "are you going to call George Farr?" "No, not if he was the last man in the world. I hate men." The swift staccato of her feet died away upon the stairs, and then a door slammed. Mrs. Saunders sank, creaking, into her chair. "Now, Robert." "So, you told her." End of section 12. This recording is in the public domain.
Chapter 3, Sections 12, 13, and 14. 12. Cecily did not appear at breakfast. Her father mounted to her room and knocked this time. "Yes?" Her voice penetrated the wood, muffled thinly. "It's me, sis. Can I come in?" There was no reply, so he entered. She had not even bathed her face, and upon the pillow she was flushed and childish with sleep. The room was permeated with her body's intimate repose. It was in his nostrils like an odor, and he felt ill at ease, cumbersome and awkward. He sat on the edge of the bed and took her surrendered hand diffidently. It was unresponsive. "How do you feel this morning?" She made no reply, lazily feeling her ascendancy, and he continued with assumed lightness. "Do you feel better about poor young Mahon this morning?" "I've put him out of my mind. He doesn't need me any more." "Of course he does," heartily. "We expect you to be his best medicine." "How can I?" "How? What do you mean?" He brought his own medicine with him. Her calmness, her exasperating calmness. He must flog himself into yesterday's rage. That was the only way to do anything with him. Damn him. "Did it ever occur to you that I, in my limited way, may know more about this than you?" She withdrew her hand and slid it beneath the covers, making no reply, not even looking at him. He continued, "You're acting like a fool, Cecily. What did the man do to you yesterday?" "He simply insulted me before another woman, but I don't care to discuss it." "But listen, sis. Are you refusing even to see him when seeing him meant whether or not he will get well again? He's got that black woman. If she can't cure him with all her experience, I certainly can't." Her father's face slowly suffused. She glanced at him impersonally, then turned her head on the pillow, staring out the window. So you refuse to see him anymore? What else can I do? He very evidently does not want me to bother him any longer. Do you want me to go where I'm not wanted? He swallowed his anger, trying to speak calmly, trying to match her calm. Don't you see that I'm not trying to make you do anything? That I'm only trying to help that boy get on his feet again? Suppose he was Bob. Suppose Bob was lying there like he is. Then you'd better get engaged to him yourself. I'm not. Look at me, he said, with such quiet, such repression, that she lay motionless, holding her breath. He put a rough hand on her shoulder. You don't have to manhandle me, she told him calmly, turning her head. Listen to me. You are not to see that far boy anymore, understand? Her eyes were unfathomable as seawater. Do you understand me? He repeated. Yes, I hear you. He rose. They were amazingly alike. He turned at the door, meeting her stubborn, impersonal gaze. I meant it, sis. Her eyes clouded suddenly. I'm sick and tired of men. Do you think I care? The door closed behind him and she lay, staring at its inscrutable painted surface, running her fingers lightly over her breasts, across her belly, drawing concentric circles upon her body beneath the covers, wondering how it would feel to have a baby, hating that inevitable time when she'd have to have one, blurring her slim epicenity, blurring her body with pain. 13. Miss Cecily Saunders, in pale blue linen, entered a neighbor's house, gushing, paying a morning call. Women did not like her, and she knew it. Yet she had a way with them, a way of charming them temporarily with her conventional perfection, insincere though she might be. Her tact and her graceful deference were such that they discussed her disparagingly, only behind her back. None of them could long resist her. She always seemed to enjoy other people's gossip. It was not until later you found that she had gossiped none herself, and this indeed requires tact. She chatted briefly while her hostess pottered among tubbed flowers. Then, asking and receiving permission, she entered the house to use the telephone. 14. Mr. George Farr, lurking casually within the courthouse portals, saw her unmistakable approaching figure far down the shady street, remarking her quick, nervous stride. He gloated, fondling her in his eyes with a slow sensuality. That's the way to treat him. Make him come to you. Forgetting that he'd phoned her vainly 5 times in 30 hours, but her surprise was so perfect, her greeting so impersonal, that he began to doubt his own ears. My God, he said, I thought I'd never get you on the phone. Yes, she paused, creating an unpleasant illusion of arrested haste. Been sick? Yes, sort of. Well, moving on, I'm awfully glad to have seen you. Call me again sometime when I'm in, won't you? But say, Cecily. She paused again and looked at him over her shoulder with courteous patience. Yes, where are you going? Oh, I'm running errands today, buying some things for Mama. Goodbye. She moved again, her blue linen shaping delicate and crisp to her stride, a Negro driving a wagon passed between them, interminable as time. He thought the wagon would never pass, so he darted around it to overtake her. Be careful, she said quickly. Daddy's downtown today. I'm not supposed to see you anymore. My folks are down on you. Why? He asked in startled vacuity. I don't know. Perhaps they've heard of your running around with women and they think you'll ruin me. That's it, probably. Flattered, he said. Oh, come on. They walked beneath awnings. Wagons tethered to slumbering mules and horses were motionless in the square. They were lapped, surrounded, submerged by the frank odor of unwashed Negroes, most of whom wore at least one ex-garment of the army, O.D., and their slow, unemphatic voices and careless, ready laughter, which is also somehow beneath it, something elemental and sorrowful and unresisting, lay drowsily upon the noon. At the corner was a drugstore, in each window of which was an identical globe, containing liquids once red and green, respectively, but faded now to a weak, similar brown by the suns of many summers. She stayed him with her hand. You mustn't come any further, George, please. Oh, come on, Cecily. No, goodbye. Her slim hand stopped him dead in his tracks. Come in and have a Coca-Cola. No, I can't. I have so many things to do. I'm sorry. Well, after you get through then, he suggested as a last resort. I can't tell, but if you want to, you can wait here for me and I'll come back if I have time. If you want to, you know. All right, I'll wait here for you. Please come, Cecily. I can't promise. Goodbye. He was forced to watch her retreating from him, mincing and graceful, diminishing. Hell, she won't come, he told himself, but he daren't leave for fear she might. He watched her as long as he could see her, watching her head among other heads, sometimes seeing her whole body, delicate and unmistakable. He lit a cigarette and lounged into the drugstore. After a while, the clock on the courthouse struck 12 and he threw away his 5th cigarette. God damn her. She won't have another chance to stand me up, he swore. Cursing her, he felt better and pushed open the screen door. He sprang suddenly back into the store and stepped swiftly out of sight, and the soda clerk, glassy-haired and white-jacketed, said, "What you dodging?" with interest. She passed, walking and talking gaily with a young married man who clerked in a department store. She looked in as they passed without seeing him. He waited, wrung and bitter with anger and jealousy, until he knew she'd turned the corner. Then he swung the door outward, furiously. He cursed her again blindly, and someone behind him saying, Miss George, monotonously drew up beside him. He whirled upon a Negro boy. What in hell you want? He snapped. Letter for you, replied the Negro, equably shaming him with better breeding. He took it and gave the boy a coin. It was written on a scrap of wrapping paper, and it read, Come tonight after they've gone to bed. I may not get out, but come if you want to. He read and reread it. He stared at her spidery, nervous script until the words themselves ceased to mean anything to his mind. He was sick with relief. Everything, the ancient slumbering courthouse, the elms, the hitched, somnolent horses and mules, the stolid coagulation of Negroes and the slow unemphasis of their talk and laughter, all seemed some way different, lovely and beautiful under the indolent noon. He drew a long breath. End of section 13. This recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4, Part 1. Mr. George Farr considered himself quite a man. I wonder if it shows in my face, he thought, keenly examining the faces of men whom he passed, trying to fancy that he did see something in some faces that other faces had not. But he had to admit that he could see nothing, and he knew a slight depression, a disappointment. Strange. If that didn't show in your face, what could you do for things to show in your face? It would be fine if George Farr was a gentleman. If without talking, men who had women could somehow know each other on sight, some sort of involuntary sign, an automatic masonry. Of course women were no new thing to him, but not like this. Then the pleasing thought occurred to him that he was unique in the world, that nothing like this had happened to any other man, that no one else had ever thought of such a thing. Anyway, I know it. He gloated over a secret thought, like a pleasant taste in the mouth, when he remembered. Remember, had he thought of anything else? How she had run into the dark house in her nightgown, weeping. He felt quite masculine and superior and gentle. She's all right now, though. I guess they all do that. His Jove-like calm was slightly shaken, however, after he had tried twice unsuccessfully to get her over the phone, and it was completely shattered when late in the afternoon she drove serenely by him in a car, with a girlfriend, utterly ignoring him. She didn't see me. You know she did. She didn't see me. You know damn well she did. By nightfall, he was on the verge of his possible, mild, unemphatic insanity. Then this cooled away as the sun cooled from the sky. He felt nothing, yet like an unattached ghost he felt compelled to linger around the corner which she would pass if she did come downtown. Suddenly, he knew terror. What if I were to see her with another man? It would be worse than death, he knew, trying to make himself leave, to hide somewhere like a wounded beast, but his body would not go. He saw her time after time, and when it turned out to be someone else, he did not know what he felt. And so when she did turn the corner, he did not believe his eyes at first. It was her brother that he first recognized. Then he saw her, and all his life went into his eyes, leaving his body but an awkward, ugly gesture in unquicked clay. He could not have said how long it was that he was unconscious of the stone base of the monument on which he sat, while she and her brother moved slowly and implacably across his vision. Then his life flowed completely, emptying his eyes and filling his body again, giving him dominion over his arms and legs, and temporarily sightless, he sprang after her. "Hi, George," young Robert greeted him casually, as an equal. "Going to the show?" She looked at him swiftly, delicately, with terror and something like loathing. "Cecily," he said. Her eyes were dark, black, and she averted her head and hurried on. "Cecily," he implored, touching her arm. At his touch she shuddered, shrinking from him. Don't touch me," she said piteously. Her face was blanched, colorless, and he stood watching her frail dress flowing to the fragile articulation of her body as she and her brother passed on, leaving him. And he, too, partook of her pain and terror, not knowing what it was. 2. Donald Mahone's homecoming, poor fellow, was hardly a 9 days' wonder even. Curious, kindly neighbors came in, men who stood or sat jovially, respectable, cheerful, solid businessmen interested in the moor only as a byproduct of the rise and fall of Mr. Wilson, and interested in that only as a matter of dollars and cents, while their wives chatted about clothes to each other across Mahone's scarred, oblivious brow. A few of the rector's more casual acquaintances democratically uncravated, hushing their tobacco into a bulged cheek, diffidently but firmly refusing to surrender their hats. Girls that he'd known, had danced with or courted of summer nights, come now to look once upon his face and then quickly aside in hushed nausea, not coming any more unless his face happened to be hidden on the first visit, upon which they finally found opportunity to see it. Boys come to go away fretted because he wouldn't tell any war stories. All this going on about him, while Gilligan, his glum major domo, handled them all with impartial, discouraging efficiency. "Beat it now," he repeated to young Robert Saunders, who, with sundry contemporaries to whom he promised something good in the way of damaged soldiers, had called. "He's going to marry my sister. I'd like to know why I can't see him," young Robert protested. He was in the uncomfortable position of one who has inveigled his friends into a gold mine and then cannot produce the mine. They jeered at him and he justified his position hotly, appealing to Gilligan. "Go on now. Beat it. Show's over. Go on now." Gilligan shut the door on him. Mrs. Powers, descending the stairs, said, "What is it, Joe?" "That damn Saunders hellion brought his whole gang round to see his scar. We got to stop this," he stated with exasperation. "Can't have these damn folks in and out of here all day long staring at him." "Well, it is about over," she told him. "They've all called by now. Even their funny little paper has appeared. Or Hero Returns, you know, that sort of thing." "I hope so," he answered without hope. "God knows they've all been here once. Do you know, while I was living and eating and sleeping with men all the time, I never thought much of them. But since I got civilized again and seen all these women round here saying, 'Ain't his face terrible, poor boy?' and 'Will she marry him?' and 'Did you see her downtown yesterday almost naked?' Why, I think a little better of men after all. You'll notice them soldiers don't bother him, especially the ones that was overseas. They just kind of call the whole thing off. He just had hard luck, and what you're going to do about it is the way they figure. Some didn't and some did, the way they think of it." They stood together looking out of the window upon the sleepy street. Women, quite palpably dressed, went steadily beneath parasols in one direction. "Ladies' Aid," murmured Gilligan. "WCTU, maybe." "I think you're becoming misanthropic, Joe." Gilligan glanced at her smooth, contemplative profile almost on a level with his own. "About women? When I say soldiers, I don't mean me. I wasn't no soldier any more than a man that fixes watches is a watchmaker. Then when I say women, I don't mean you." She put her arm over his shoulder. It was firm, latent in strength, comforting. He knew that he could embrace her in the same way, that if he wished she would kiss him frankly and firmly, that her eyelids would never veil her eyes at the touch of his mouth. What man is for her, he wondered, knowing that after all no man was for her, knowing that she would go through with all physical intimacies, that she would undress to a lover, with this same impersonal efficiency. He should be He should be a gladiator, or a statesman, or a victorious general, someone hard and ruthless who would expect nothing from her, of whom she would expect nothing, like two gods exchanging golden baubles. And I'm no gladiator, nor statesman, nor general. I am nothing. Perhaps that's why I want so much from her. He put his arm over her shoulders. Niggers and mules. Afternoon lay in a coma in the street, like a woman recently loved, quiet and warm. Nothing now that the lover has gone away. Leaves were like a green liquid arrested in the mid-flow, flattened and spread. Leaves were as though cut with scissors from green paper and pasted flat on the afternoon. Someone dreamed them and then forgot his dream. Niggers and mules. Monotonous wagons drawn by long-eared beasts crawled past, Negroes humped with sleep, portentous upon each wagon, and in the wagon bed itself sat other Negroes upon chairs, a pagan catafalque under the afternoon, rigid as though carved in Egypt 10,000 years ago. Slow dust rising veiled their passing like time. The necks of mules limber as rubber hose swayed their heads from side to side, looking behind them always. But the mules were asleep also. Catch me sleep, he kill me, but I got mule blood in me. When he sleep, I sleep. When he wake, I wake. In the study where Donald sat, his father wrote steadily on tomorrow's sermon. The afternoon slept without. The town. War hero returns. His face, the way that girl goes on with that far boy. Young Robert Saunders. I just want to see his scar. Cecily. And now I'm not a good woman anymore. Oh well, it had to be sometime, I guess. George Farr. Yes, she was a virgin. But if she won't see me, it means somebody else. Her body in another's arms. Why must you? Why must you? What do you want? Tell me, I'll do anything. Margaret Powers. Can nothing at all move me again? Nothing to desire? Nothing to stir me, to move me, save pity? Gilligan. Margaret, tell me what you want. I will do it. Tell me, Margaret. The rector wrote, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Donald Mahone, knowing time is only something which was taking from him a world he did not particularly mind losing, stared out a window into green and motionless leaves, a motionless blur. The afternoon dreamed on toward sunset, niggers and mules. At last Gilligan broke the silence. That old fat one is going to send her car to take him riding. Mrs. Powers made no reply. 3. San Francisco, California, April 5th, 1919. Dear Margaret, Well, I am at home again. I got here this afternoon. As soon as I got away from Mother, I am sitting down to write to you. Home seems pretty good after you've been doing a pretty risky thing like lots of them cracked up at. It's boring, all these girls, how they go on over a flying man, if you ever experienced it, isn't it? There was a couple of Janes on the train I met. Well, anyway, they saw my hat band and they gave me the eye. They were society girls, they said, but I'm not so dumb anyway. They were nice kids, and they might have been society girls. Anyway, I got their phone numbers, and I'm going to give them a call. Just kidding them. See, there's only one woman for me, Margaret. You know it. Well, we rode on into San Francisco talking and laughing in their stateroom, so I'm going to take the best looking of them out this week. I made a date with her, except she wants me to bring a fellow for her friend, so I guess I will. Poor kids. They probably haven't had much fun during the war, like a man can have during the war. But I'm just kidding them, Margaret. You mustn't be jealous like I am. Not jealous over Luke Mahone. Well, Mother is dragging me out to tea. I had be shot than go, except she insists. Give my regards to Joe. With love, Julian. Mrs. Powers and Gilligan met the specialist from Atlanta at the station. In the cab, he listened to her attentively. But my dear madam, he objected when she'd finished, you're asking me to commit an ethical violation. But surely, doctor, it isn't a violation of professional ethics to let his father believe as he wishes to believe, is it? No, it's a violation of my personal ethics. Then you tell me and let me tell his father. Yes, I will do that. But pardon me, may I ask what exactly is your relation to him? We are to be married, she answered, looking at him steadily. Oh, then that is quite all right. I will promise not to say anything before his father that can disturb him. He kept his promise. After lunch he joined her, where she sat on the shaded, quiet veranda. She put aside her embroidery frame and he took a chair, puffing furiously at his cigar until it burned evenly. "What is he waiting for?" he asked suddenly. "Waiting for?" she repeated. He flashed her a keen gray glance. "There is no ultimate hope for him, you know." "For his sight, you mean?" "That's practically gone now. I mean for him." "I know. That's what Mr. Gilligan said 2 weeks ago." Is Mr. Gilligan a doctor?" "No. But it doesn't take a doctor to see that, does it?" "Not necessarily, but I think Mr. Gilligan rather overshot himself making a public statement like that." She rocked gently. He veiled his head in smoke, watching the evenly burning ash at the cigar tip. She said, "You think that there's no hope for him, then?" "Frankly, I do not." He tilted the ash carefully over the balustrade. "He's practically a dead man now. More than that, he should have been dead these 3 months were it not for the fact that he seems to be waiting for something he's begun but has not completed, something he's carried from his former life that he does not remember consciously. That is his only hold on life that I can see." He gave her another keen glance. "How does he regard you now?" "He remembers nothing of his life before he was injured." She met his sharp, kind gaze a moment, then she suddenly decided to tell him the truth. He watched her intently until she'd finished. "So, you're meddling with Providence, are you?" "Wouldn't you have done the same?" she defended herself. "I never speculate on what I would have done," he answered shortly. "There can be no if in my profession. I work in tissue and bone, not in circumstance. Well, it's done now. I'm in it too far to withdraw." "So you think he may go at any time?" "You're asking me to speculate again. What I said was that he will go whenever that final spark somewhere in him is no longer fed. His body is dead already. Further than that, I cannot say." "An operation?" she suggested. "He would not survive it. And in the second place, the human machine can only be patched and parts replaced up to a certain point, and all that has been done for him, where he would never have been released from any hospital." Afternoon drew on. They sat quietly talking while sunlight, becoming lateral, broke through the screening leaves and sprinkled the porch with flecks of yellow, like mica in a stream. The same Negro in the same undershirt droned up and down the lawn with his lawnmower. An occasional vehicle passed slumberous and creaking behind twitching mules, or moving more swiftly, leaving a fretful odor of gasoline to die beneath the afternoon. The rector joined them after a while. "Then there's nothing to do except let him build himself up, eh, doctor?" he asked. "Yes, that is my advice. Attention, rest, and quiet let him resume old habits. About his sight, though." The rector looked up slowly. "Yes, I realize his sight must go, but there are compensations. He's engaged to be married to a very charming lady. Don't you think that will give him incentive to help himself?" "Yes, that should, if anything can." "What do you think? Shall we hurry the marriage along?" "Well," the doctor hesitated. He was not exactly accustomed to giving advice on this subject. Mrs. Powers came to his rescue. "I think we'd better not hurry him at all," she said quickly. "Let him accustom himself leisurely, you see. Don't you think so, Dr. Baird?" "Yes, Reverend, you let Mrs. Powers here advise you about that. I have every confidence in her judgment. You let her take charge of this thing. Women are always more capable than we are, you know." "That's quite true. We are already under measureless obligations to Mrs. Powers." "Nonsense. I've almost adopted Donald myself." The cab came at last, and Gilligan appeared with the doctor's things. They rose, and Mrs. Powers slipped her arm through the rector's. She squeezed his arm and released him. As she and Gilligan, flanking the doctor, descended the steps, the rector said again timidly, "You're sure, doctor, there's nothing to be done immediately? We are naturally anxious, you know," he ended apologetically. No, the doctor replied testily. "He can help himself more than we can help him." The rector stood watching until the cab turned the corner. Looking back, she could see him in the door, staring after them. Then they turned a corner. As the train drew into the station, the doctor said, taking her hand, "You've let yourself in for something that's going to be unpleasant, young lady." She gave him a straight glance in return. "I'll take the risk," she said, shaking his hand firmly. "Well, goodbye then, and good luck." "Goodbye, sir," she answered, "and thank you." He turned to Gilligan, offering his hand. "And the same to you, Dr. Gilligan," he said with faint sarcasm. They saw his neat grey back disappear, and Gilligan, turning to her, asked, "What do you call me doctor for?" "Come on, Joe," she said, not replying to his questions. "Let's walk back. I want to walk through the woods again." End of section 14. This recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4, Part 4 and 5. The air was sweet with fresh sawed lumber, and they walked through a pale yellow city of symmetrical stacked planks. A continuous line of Negroes carried boards up a cleated incline like a chicken run into a freight car and flung them plashing to the floor, under the eye of an informally clad white man who reclined easily upon a lumber pile, chewing indolent tobacco. He watched them with interest as they passed, following the faint wagon road. They crossed grass-grown steel rails, and trees obscured the lumber yard. But until they reached the bottom of the hill, the voices of the Negroes raised in bursts of meaningless laughter or snatches of song in a sorrowful minor came to them, and the slow reverberations of the cast boards smote at measured intervals. Quietly, under the spell of the still late afternoon woods, they descended a loamy hill, following the faint downward winding of the road. At the foot of the hill, a dogwood tree spread flat palm-like branches in invocation among dense green, like a white nun. "Niggers cut them for firewood because they're easy to chop," she said, breaking the silence. "Shame, isn't it?" "Do they?" he murmured without interest. With the soft sandy soil giving easily under their feet, they came upon water. It ran somberly from outmassed honeysuckle vines, and crossed the dim road into another impenetrable thicket, murmuring. She stopped, and bending slightly, they could see their heads and their two foreshortened bodies repeating themselves. "Do we look that funny to people, I wonder?" she said. Then she stepped quickly across. "Come on, Joe." The road passed from the dim greenness into sunlight again. It was still sandy, and the going was harder, exasperating. "You'll have to pull me, Joe." She took his arm, feeling her heels sink and slip treacherously at each step. Her unevenly distributed weight made his own progress more difficult, and he disengaged his arm and put his hand against her back. "That's better," she said, leaning against his firm hand. The road circled the foot of a hill, and trees descending the hill were halted by the curving road's green canyon, as though waiting to step across when they had passed. Sun was in the trees like an arrested lateral rain, and ahead, where circling the green track of the stream approached the road again, they heard young voices and a sound of water. They walked slowly through the shifting sand, and the voices beyond a screen of thick leaves became louder. She squeezed his arm for silence, and they left the road and parted leaves cautiously upon glinted, disturbed water, taking and giving the sun in a flashing barter of gold for gold, dazzling the eyes. Two wet, matted heads spread opening fans of water, like muskrats, and on a limb, balanced precariously to dive, stood a third swimmer. His body was the color of old paper, beautiful as a young animal's. They stepped into view, and Gilligan said, "Hi, Colonel." The diver took one quick, terrified look, and releasing his hold, he fell like a stone into the water. The other two, shocked and motionless, stared at the intruders. Then, when the diver reappeared above the surface, they whooped at him in merciless derision. He swam like an eel across the pool and took refuge beneath the overhanging bank, out of sight. His companions still squalled at him in inarticulate mirth. She raised her voice above the din. "Come on, Joe, we've spoiled their fun." They left the noise behind, and again in the road she remarked, "We shouldn't have done that. Poor boy, they'll tease him to death now. What makes men so silly, Joe? Damn if I know, but they sure are. Do you know who that was?" "No. Who was it?" "Her brother." "Her? Young Saunders." "Oh, was it? Poor boy. I'm sorry I shocked him." And while she might have been, could she have seen his malevolent face watching her retreating figure as he swiftly donned his clothes. "I'll fix you," he swore, almost crying. The road wound through a depression between two small ridges. The sun was yet in the tops of trees, and here were cedars, unsunned and solemn, a green quiet nave. A thrush sang, and they stopped as one, listening to its 4 notes. watching the fading patches of sun on the top of the ridge. "Let's sit down and have a cigarette," she suggested. She lowered herself easily, and he sat beside her as young Robert Saunders, panting up the hill behind them, saw them and fell flat, creeping as near as he dared. Gilligan, reclining on his elbow, watched her pallid face. Her head was lowered and she dug in the earth with his stick. Her unconscious profile was in relief against a dark cedar, and she said, feeling his eyes on her, "Joe, we've got to do something about that girl. We can't expect Dr. Mahone to take sickness as an excuse much longer. I hoped her father would make her come, but they are so much alike. What you want to do? Want me to go and drag her up by the hair?" "I expect that would be the best way after all." Her twig broke, and casting it aside, she searched for another one. "Sure it would, if you got a fool with her kind at all. Unluckily, though, this is a civilized age and you can't do that." "So-called," muttered Gilligan. He sucked at his cigarette, then watched the spun white arc of its flight. The thrush sang again, filling the interval liquidly, and young Robert, thinking, "Is it Sis they're talking about?" felt fire on his leg and brushed from it an ant almost half an inch long. "Drag her by the hair, huh?" he muttered. "I'd like to see him." "Ow, but he stings," rubbing his leg, which did not help it any. "What are we going to do, Joe? Tell me, you know about people." Gilligan shifted his weight and his corrugated elbow tingled under his other hand. "We've been thinking of them ever since we met. Let's think about you and me for a while," he said roughly. She looked at him quickly. Her black hair and her mouth like a pomegranate blossom. Her eyes were black and they became quite gentle as she said, "Please, Joe." "Oh, I ain't going to propose. I just want you to talk to me about yourself for a while." "What do you want me to tell you?" "Nothing you don't want to. Just quit thinking about the loop for a while. Just talk to me." "So you're surprised to find a woman doing something without some obvious material end in view, aren't you?" He was silent, nursing his knees, staring between them at the ground. "Joe, you think I'm in love with him, don't you?" "Uh-huh. Stealing Sis's fella. Young Robert Saunders squirming nearer, taking sand into his bosom. Don't you, Joe?" "I don't know," he replied sullenly, and she said, "What kind of women have you known, Joe?" "The wrong kind, I guess. Leastwise, none of them ever made me lose a night's sleep till I saw you. It isn't me that made you lose a night's sleep. I just happened to be the first woman you ever knew doing something you thought only a man would do. You had nice fixed ideas about women, and I upset them. Wasn't that it?" She looked at his averted face, at his reliable, homely face. "Are they going to talk all night?" thought young Robert Saunders. Hunger was in his belly, and he was gritty and uncomfortable with sand. The sun was almost down. Only the tips of trees were yet dipped in fading light, and where they sat, the shadow became a violet substance in which the thrush sang, and then fell still. "Margaret," said Gilligan at last, "were you in love with your husband?" Her face in the dusk was a smooth pallor, and after a while, "I don't know, Joe. I don't think I was. See, I lived in a small town, and I got kind of sick lazing round home all morning, and dressing up just to walk downtown in the afternoon and spending the evenings messing around with men. So after we got in the war, I persuaded some friends of my mother's to get me a position in New York, and I got into the Red Cross, helping in canteens, dancing with those poor country boys on leave, lost as sheep, trying to have a good time. And nothing in the world is harder to do in New York. And one night, Dick, my husband, came in. I didn't notice him at first, but after we'd danced together and I saw he was, impressed, I asked him about himself. He was in an officer's training camp. Then I started getting letters from him, and at last he wrote that he would be in New York until he sailed. I'd got in the habit of Dick by that time, and when I saw him again all spick and span and soldiers saluting him, I thought he was grand. You remember how it was then? Everybody excited and hysterical, like a big circus. So every night we went out to dinner and to dance, and after we would sit in my room and smoke and talk until all hours, till daylight. You know how it was. All soldiers talking of dying gloriously in battle without really believing it or knowing very much about it, and how women kind of got the same idea, like the flu, that what you did today would not matter tomorrow, that there really wasn't a tomorrow at all. You see, I think we both had agreed that we were not in love with each other for always, but we were both young, and so we might as well get all the fun we could. And then 3 days before he sailed, he suggested that we get married. I'd had proposals from nearly every soldier I'd been at all kind to, just as all the other girls did, and so I wasn't surprised much. I told him I had other men friends, and I knew that he knew other women, but neither of us bothered about that. He told me he expected to know women in France and that he didn't expect me to be a hermit while he was gone, and so we met the next morning and got married, and I went to work. He called for me at the canteen while I was dancing with some boys on leave, and the other girls all congratulated us. Lots of them had done the same thing. Only some of them teased me about being a highbrow and marrying an officer. You see, we all got so many proposals we hardly listened to them, and I don't think they listened to us either. He called for me and we went to his hotel. You see, Joe, was like when you're a child in the dark and you keep on saying, "It isn't dark, it isn't dark." We were together for 3 days, and then his boat sailed. I missed him like the devil at first. I moped around without anybody to feel sorry for me. So many of my friends were in the same fix with no sympathy to waste. Then I got dreadfully afraid I might be going to have a baby, and I almost hated Dick. But when I was sure I wasn't, I went back to the canteen, and after a while I hardly thought of Dick at all. I got more proposals, of course, and I didn't have such a bad time. Sometimes at night I'd wake up wanting Dick, but after a time he got to be a shadowy sort of person like George Washington, and at last I didn't even miss him any more. Then I began to get letters from him, addressed to his dear little wife, and telling me how he missed me and so forth. Well, that brought it all back again, and I'd write to him every day for a time. And then I found that writing bored me, and that I no longer looked forward to getting one of those dreadful flimsy envelopes that had already been opened by a censor. I didn't write any more, and one day I got a letter saying he didn't know when he'd be able to write again, but it would be as soon as he could. That was when he was going up to the front, I guess. I thought about it for a day or two, and then I made up my mind that the best thing for both of us was just to call the whole thing off. So I sat down and wrote him, wishing him luck and asking him to wish me the same. And then before my letter reached him, I received an official notice that he had been killed in action. He never got my letter at all. He died believing that everything was the same between us. She brooded in the imminent twilight. You see, I feel some way that I wasn't square with him, and so I guess I am trying to make it up to him in some way. Gilligan felt impersonal, weary. He took her hand and rubbed his cheek against it. Her hand turned in his and patted his cheek, withdrawing. "Holding hands," gloated young Robert Saunders. She leaned down, peering into Gilligan's face. He sat motionless, taut. "Take her in my arms," he debated. "Overcome her with my own passion?" Feeling this, she withdrew from him, though her body had not moved. "That wouldn't do any good, Joe. Don't you know it wouldn't?" she asked. "Yes, I know it," he said. "Let's go." "I'm sorry, Joe," she told him in a low voice, rising. He rose and helped her to her feet. She brushed her skirt and walked on beside him. The sun was completely gone, and they walked through a violet silence, soft as milk. "I wish I could, Joe," she added. He made no reply, and she said, "Don't you believe me?" He strode on, and she grasped his arm, stopping. He faced her, and in her firm, sexless embrace he stood staring at the blur of her face, almost on a level with his own, in longing and despair. "Uh-huh, kissing," crowed young Robert Saunders, releasing his cramped limbs, trailing them like an Indian. They then turned and walked on out of his sight. Night was almost come, only the footprint of day, only the odor of day, only a rumor, a ghost of light among the trees. 5. He burst into his sister's room. She was fixing her hair, and she saw him in the mirror, panting and regrettably soiled. "Get out, you little beast," she said. Undaunted, he gave his news. "Say, she's in love with Donald, that other one says, and I seen them kissing." Her arrested hands bloomed delicately in her hair. "Who is that other lady at Donald's house?" "Saw her kissing Donald?" "No, kissing that soldier fella that ain't got no scar." "Did she say she was in love with Donald?" She turned, trying to grasp her brother's arm. No, but that soldier said she is, and she never said nothing. So I guess she is, don't you? That cat. I'll fix her. That's right, he commended. That's what I told her when she sneaked up on me naked. I knowed you wouldn't let no woman beat you out of Donald. End of section 15. This recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4, parts 6 and 7. 6. Emmy put supper on the table. The house was quiet and dark. No lights yet. She went to the study door. Mahone and his father sat in the dusk, quietly watching the darkness come, slow and soundless as a measured respiration. Donald's head was in silhouette against a fading window, and Emmy saw it and felt her heart contract as she remembered that head above her against the sky on a night long ago. But now the back of it was toward her, and he no longer remembered her. She entered that room silently as the twilight itself, and standing beside his chair, looking down upon his thin, worn hair that had once been so wild, so soft, she drew his unresisting head against her hard little hip. His face was quiet under her slow hand, and as she gazed out into the twilight upon which they two gazed, she tasted the bitter ashes of an old sorrow, and she bent suddenly over his devastated head, moaning against it, making no sound. The rector stirred heavily in the dusk. "That you, Emmy?" "Supper's ready," she said quietly. Mrs. Powers and Gilligan mounted the steps onto the veranda. 7. Dr. Gary could waltz with a level glass of water on his head without spilling the drop. He did not care for the more modern dances, the nervous ones, all jumping around like monkeys. "Why try to do something a beast can do so much better?" he was wont to say. But a waltz now, can a dog waltz, or a cow? He was a smallish man, bald and dapper, and women liked him. Such a nice bedside manner. Dr. Gary was much in demand, both professionally and socially. He had also served in a French hospital in 14, 15, and 16. Like hell, he described it. Long alleys of excrement and red paint. Dr. Gary, followed by Gilligan, descended nattily from Donald's room, smoothing the set of his coat, dusting his hands with a silk handkerchief. The rector appeared hugely from his study, saying, "Well, Doctor?" Dr. Gary rolled a slender cigarette from a cloth sack, returning the sack to its lair in his cuff. When carried in his pocket, it made a bulge in the cloth. He struck a match. "Who feeds him at table?" The rector, surprised, answered. "Emmy has been giving him his meals. Helping him, that is," he qualified. "Put it in his mouth for him?" No, she merely guides his hand. Why do you ask? Who dresses and undresses him?" "Mr. Gilligan here assists him, but why?" "Have to dress and undress him like a baby, don't you?" He turned sharply to Gilligan. "Kind of," Gilligan admitted. Mrs. Powers came out of the study, and Dr. Gary nodded briefly to her. The rector said, "But why do you ask, Doctor?" The doctor looked at him sharply. Why, he turned to Gilligan. "Tell him," he snapped. The rector gazed at Gilligan. "Don't say it." His eyes seemed to plead. Gilligan's glance fell. He stood dumbly gazing at his feet, and the doctor said abruptly, "Boy's blind. Been blind 3 or 4 days. How you didn't know it, I can't see." He settled his coat and took his derby hat. "Why didn't you tell?" he asked Gilligan. "You knew, didn't you? Well, no matter. I'll look in again tomorrow. Good day, madam. Good day." Mrs. Powers took the rector's arm. "I hate that man," she said. "Damn little snob. But don't you mind, Uncle Joe. Remember that Atlanta doctor told us he would lose his sight? But doctors don't know everything. Who knows, perhaps when he gets strong and well he can have his sight restored." Yes, the rector agreed, clinging to straws. "Let's get him well, and then we can see." He turned heavily and re-entered his study. She and Gilligan looked at one another a long moment. "I could weep for him, Joe." "So could I, if it would do any good," he answered somberly. "But for God's sake, keep people out today. I intend to, but it's hard to refuse them. They mean so well, so kind and neighborly." "Kind? Hell, they're just like that Saunders brat, come to see his scar. Come in and mill round and ask him how he got it and if it hurt, as if he knowed or cared. Yes, but they shan't come in and stare at his poor head any more. We won't let them in, Joe. Tell them he's not well. Tell them anything. She entered the study. The rector sat at his desk, a pen poised above an immaculate sheet, but he was not writing. His face was propped on one great fist, and his gaze brooded darkly upon the opposite wall. She stood beside him, then she touched him. He started like a goaded beast before he recognized her. "This had to come, you know," she told him quietly. Yes, I have expected it. We all have we not?" "Yes, we all have," she agreed. "Poor Cecily. I was just thinking of her. It will be a blow to her, I'm afraid, but she really cares for Donald, thank God. Her affection for him is quite pretty. You've noticed it, haven't you?" Yes. "It's too bad she's not strong enough to come every day, but she's quite delicate, as you know, don't you?" Yes, I'm sure she will come when she can." "So am I. Thank God there's one thing which has not failed him." His hands were clasped loosely upon the paper before him. "Oh, you are writing a sermon and I've interrupted you. I didn't know," she apologized, withdrawing. "Not at all. Don't go. I can do this later." "No, you do it now. I'll go and sit with Donald. Mr. Gilligan's going to fix a chair for him on the lawn today. It's so nice out." Yes. "I will finish my sermon and join you." From the door she looked back, but he was not writing. His face was propped on one great fist, and his gaze brooded darkly upon the opposite wall. Mahone sat in a deck chair. He wore blue glasses, and a soft limp hat concealed his brow. He liked to be read to, though no one could tell whether or not the words meant anything to him. Perhaps it was the sound of the voice that he liked. This time it was Gibbon's History of Rome, and Gilligan wallowed atrociously among polysyllabic words when Mrs. Powers joined them. He had brought a chair for her, and she sat, neither hearing nor not hearing, letting Gilligan's droning voice soothe her as it did Mahone. The leaves above her head stirred faintly, agitated upon the ineffable sky, dappling her dress with shadow. Clover was again thrusting above the recently mown grass, and bees broke it. Bees were humming golden arrows, tipped or untipped with honey, and from the church spire pigeons were remote and unemphatic as sleep. A noise aroused her, and Gilligan ceased reading. Mahone sat motionless, hopeless as time, as across the grass came an old Negro woman, followed by a strapping young Negro in a private's uniform. They came straight toward the sitting group, and the woman's voice rose upon the slumberous afternoon. "Hush your mouth, Luce," she was saying. "It'll be a poor day in the morning when my baby don't want to see his old Callie. Donald, Miss Donald, honey, here Callie come to you, honey. Here your mommy come to you." She completed the last steps in a shuffling lope. Gilligan rose, intercepting her. "Hold up, auntie. He's asleep. Don't bother him." "No, sir. He don't want to sleep when his own folks comes to see him." Her voice rose again, and Donald moved in his chair. "What I tell you? He wake. Look at him. Mr. Donald, honey." Gilligan held her withered arm while she strained like a leashed hound. "Bless the Lord. Done sent you back to your mummy." "Yes, Jesus, every day I prayed, and the Lord heard me." She turned to Gilligan. "Let me go, please, sir." "Better go, Joe," Mrs. Powers seconded, and Gilligan released her. She knelt beside Donald's chair, putting her hands on his face. Luce stood diffidently in the background. "Donald, baby, look at me. Don't you know who this is? 'Tis your Callie what used to put you to bed, honey. Look here at me. Lord, the white folks done ruined you, but no mind, your mommy gwine look after her baby." "You, Luce," still kneeling, she turned and called to her grandson. "Come up here and speak to Mr. Donald, here where he can see you. Donald, honey, here this trifling nigger talking to you. Look at him in them soldier clothes." Luce took 2 paces and came smartly to attention, saluting. "If the lieutenant please, Corporal Nelson glad to see. Corporal Nelson glad to see the lieutenant and looking so well. Don't you stand there waving your arm at your Mr. Donald, nigger boy. Come up here and speak to him like you'd been raised to." Luce lost his military bearing, and he became again that same boy who had known Mahone long ago, before the world went crazy. He came up diffidently and took Mahone's hand in his kind, rough, black one. "Mr. Donald," he said. "That's it," his grandmother commended. "Mr. Donald, that Loosh talking to you. Mr. Donald." Mahone stirred in his chair and Gilligan forcibly lifted the old woman to her feet. "Now, Auntie, that's enough for one time. You come back tomorrow. Lord, to hear today when white man tell me Mr. Donald don't want to see me. He's sick, Auntie," Mrs. Powers explained. "Of course he wants to see you. When he's better, you and Loosh must come every day." "Yes, ma'am. They ain't enough water in the 7 seas to keep me from my baby. I'm coming back, honey. I'm going to look after you." "Get her away, Loosh," Mrs. Powers whispered to the Negro. "He's sick, you know." "Yes'm. He one sick man in this world. If he wants me for anything, any black man can tell you where I'm at, ma'am." He took his grandmother's arm. "Come on here, Mammy. Us gotta be going. I'm a-comin' back, Donald, honey. I ain't want to leave you." They retreated and her voice died away. Mahone said, "Joe?" "What you say, Loot? When am I going to get out?" "Out of what, Loot?" But he was silent, and Gilligan and Mrs. Powers stared at each other tensely. At last he spoke again. "I've got to go home, Joe." He raised his hand, fumbling, striking his glasses, and they fell from his face. Gilligan replaced them. "What you want to go home for, Loot?" But he'd lost his thought. "Then who was that talking, Joe?" Gilligan told him, and he sat slowly plaiting the corner of his jacket, the suit Gilligan had got for him in his fingers. Then he said, "Carry on, Joe." Gilligan picked up the book again, and soon his voice resumed its soporific drone. Mahone became still in his chair. After a while Gilligan ceased. Mahone did not move, and he rose and peered over the blue glasses. "You can never tell when he's asleep and when he ain't," he said fretfully. End of section 16. This recording is in the public domain. Chapter 5, parts 1 to 4. 1. Captain Green, who raised the company, had got a captain's commission from the governor of the state thereby, but Captain Green was dead. He might have been a good officer. He might have been anything. Certainly he remembered his friends. 2 subaltern's commissions were given away politically in spite of him, so the best he could do was to make his friend Madden first sergeant, which he did. And so here was Green, in bars and shiny puttees. Here was Madden, trying to acquire the habit of saying "sir" to him. Here was Tom and Dick and Harry, with whom both Green and Madden had gambled and drunk whiskey, trying to learn to remember that there was a difference not only between them and Green and Madden, but there was also a difference between Madden and Green. "Oh well," they said in American camps. "He's working hard, let him get used to it. It's only on parade, eh, Sergeant?" "Sure," Sergeant Madden replied. "The colonel is giving us hell about our appearance. Can't we do better than this?" But at Brest, what in hell does he think he is? Pershing? They asked Sergeant Madden. Come on, snap into it. If I hear another word from a man, he goes before the captain." Sergeant Madden had also changed. "In wartime one lives in today. Yesterday is gone, and tomorrow may never come. Wait till we get into action," they told each other. "We'll kill the son of a bitch." "Not Madden?" asked one, horrified. They only looked at him. "For Christ's sake," remarked one at last. But fate, using the War Department as an instrument, circumvented them. When Sergeant Madden reported to his present captain and his old friend, he found Green alone. "Sit down, damn it," Green told him. "Nobody's coming in. I know what you're going to say. I'm moving anyhow. Should get my papers tonight." "Wait," as Madden would have interrupted. "If I want to hold my commission, I have got to work. These goddamn training camps turn out officers trained, but I wasn't, and so I'm going to school for a while. Christ, at my age, I wish to God somebody else had gotten up this damn outfit. You know where I would like to be now? Out yonder with them, calling somebody else a son of a bitch as they're calling me now. You think I get any fun out of this? Oh, hell, let 'em talk. What do you expect?" "Nothing. Only I had to promise the mother of every goddamn one of them that I'd look out for him and not let him get hurt. And now there's not a bastard one wouldn't shoot me in the back if he got a chance." "But what do you expect from them? What do you want? This is no picnic, you know." They sat silent across a table from each other. Their faces were ridged and sharp, cavernous in the unshadowed glare of light while they sat thinking of home, of quiet elm-shaded streets along which wagons creaked and crawled through the dusty day, and along which girls and boys walked in the evening to and from the picture show, or to sip sweet chilled liquids in drugstores, of peace and quiet and all homely things, of a time when there was no war. They thought of young days not so far behind them, of the faint unease of complete physical satisfaction, of youth and lust like icing on a cake, making the cake sweeter. Outside was Brittany and mud, an equivocal city, temporary and twice foreign, lust in a foreign tongue. Tomorrow we die. At last, Captain Green said diffidently, "You're all right?" "Hell yes. They wanted to reduce me at one time, but I'm all right now." Green opened his mouth twice, like a fish, and Madden said quickly, "I'll look after them. Don't you worry." I'm not about those bastards." An orderly entered, saluting. Green acknowledged him, and the man delivered his message stiffly and withdrew. "There it is," said the captain. "You'll go tomorrow, then?" Yes, I hope so," he answered, vaguely staring at the sergeant. Madden rose. "Well, I think I'll run along. I feel tired tonight." Green rose also, and they stared at each other like strangers across the table. "You'll come to see me in the morning?" "I guess so." "Sure, I'll come in." Madden wished to withdraw, and Green wanted him to, but they stood awkwardly, silent. At last Green said, "I'm obliged to you." Madden's light caverned eyes held a question. Their shadows were monstrous. "For helping me get by with that dose. Court-martial, you know. What did you expect of me?" "No less," Green acknowledged, and Madden continued, "Why don't you let those women alone? They're all rotten with it." "Easy to say," Green laughed mirthlessly. "For you, I mean." Madden's hand strayed to the pocket of his blouse, then fell to his side again. After a while he repeated, "Well, I'll be going." The captain moved around the table, extending his hand. "Well, goodbye." Madden did not take it. "Goodbye? I may not see you again," the other explained lamely. "Hell, you talk like you were going home. Don't be a fool. Those birds don't mean anything by panning you. It'll be the same with anybody." Green watched his knuckles whitening on the table. "I didn't mean that. I meant—" He could not say, "I may be killed." A man simply didn't say a thing like that. "You'll get to the front before I do, I expect." "Perhaps so, but there's enough for all of us, I reckon." The rain had ceased for some reason, and there came up faintly on the damp air that sound, made by battalions and regiments being quiet, an orderly silence, louder than a riot. Outside, Madden felt mud, new darkness and damp. He smelled food and excrement and slumber beneath a sky too remote to distinguish between peace and war. 2. He thought at times of Captain Green as he crossed France, seeing the intermittent silver smugness of rain spaced forever with poplars like an eternal frieze giving way upon vistas fallow and fecund, roads and canals and villages shining their roofs violently, spires and trees, roads, villages, towns, a city, villages, then cars and troops at junction points. He saw people going about warfare in a businesslike way. He saw French soldiers playing croquet in stained horizon blue. He saw American soldiers watching them, giving them American cigarettes. He saw American and British troops fighting. Saw nobody minding them particularly, save the MPs. A man must be in a funny frame of mind to be an MP, or a nigger general. The war zone. Business as usual, the golden age of non-combatants. He thought at times of Green, wondering where the other was, even after he got to know his new company commander, a man quite different from Green. He'd been a college instructor, and he could explain to you where Alexander and Napoleon and Grant made their mistakes. He was mild. His voice could scarcely be heard on a parade ground, and his men all said, "Wait till we get into the lines. We'll fix the son of a bitch." Sergeant Madden, however, got along quite well with his officers, particularly with a lieutenant named Powers, and with the men too. Even after a training period with dummies and a miniature sector, he got along with them. They'd become accustomed to the sound of far guns, shooting at other people, however, and the flickering horizon at night. They'd been bombed by airplanes while lined up for mess at a field kitchen, while the personnel of a concealed French battery watched them without interest from a dugout. They had received much advice from troops that had been in the lines. At last they were going in themselves after a measureless space of aimless wandering here and there, and the sound of guns, though seemingly no nearer, was no longer impersonal. They tramped by night, feeling their feet sink, then hearing them suck in mud. Then they felt sloping ground and were in a ditch. It was as if they were burying themselves, descending into their own graves in the bowels of the wet black earth, into a darkness so dense as to constrict breathing, constrict the heart. They stumbled on in the darkness. Out of the gratis advice they had received, they recalled strongest to drop when a gun went off or when they heard a shell coming. So when a machine gun far to the right stuttered, breaking the slow hysteria of decay which buried them, someone dropped. Someone stumbled over him. Then they all went down as one man. The officer cursed them. Non-coms kicked them erect again. Then, while they stood huddled in the dark, smelling death, the lieutenant ran back along the line, making them a brief, bitter speech. Who in hell told you to lie down? The only guns within 2 miles of you are those things in your hands there. Feel this? This thing here? Slapping the rifles. This is a gun. Sergeants, if another man drops, tramp him right into the mud and leave him. They plowed on, panting and cursing in whispers. Suddenly, they were among men, and a veteran of 4 days, sensing that effluvia of men new to battle, said, "Why, look at the soldiers come to fight in the war." "Silence there," a non-com's voice, and a sergeant came jumping along, saying, "Where's your officer?" Men going out brushed them, passing on in the pitch-wet darkness, and a voice whispered wickedly, "Look out for gas." The word gas passed from mouth to mouth, and authority raged them into silence again, but the mischief had been done. Gas. Bullets and death and damnation, but gas. It looked like mist, they'd been told. First thing you know, you're in it, and then good night. Silence broken by muddy movements of unrest and breathing. Eastward, the sky paled impalpably, more like a death than a birth of anything, and they peered out in front of them, seeing nothing. There seemed to be no war here at all, though to the right of them a rumorous guttural of guns rose and fell thickly and heavily on the weary dawn. Powers, the officer, had passed from man to man. No one must fire. There was a patrol out there somewhere in the darkness. Dawn grew gray and slow. After a while, the earth took a vague form, and someone, seeing a lesser darkness, screamed, "Gas!" Powers and Madden sprang among them as they fought blindly, fumbling and tearing at their gas masks, trampling each other, but they were powerless. The lieutenant laid about him with his fists, trying to make himself heard, and the man who'd given the alarm whirled suddenly on the fire step, his head and shoulders sharp against the sorrowful dawn. "You got us killed!" he shrieked, shooting the officer in the face at point-blank range. 3. Sergeant Madden thought of Green again on a later day as he ran over broken ground at Cantigny, saying, "Mon, you bastards, you want to live forever?" He forgot Green, temporarily, as he lay beside a boy who'd sold him shoes back home, in a shell hole too small for them, feeling his exposed leg, whipped by a gale as a tufted branch is whipped by a storm. After a while night came, and the gale passed away, and the man beside him died. While in hospital, he saw Captain Green's name in a published casualty list. He also discovered in hospital that he'd lost his photograph. He asked hospital orderlies and nurses about it, but no one recalled having seen it among his effects. It was just as well, though. She had, in the meantime, married a lieutenant on the staff of a college ROTC unit. 4. Mrs. Burney's block was neat and completely air-proof. She did not believe in air, save as a necessary adjunct to breathing. Mr. Burney, a morose, silent man whose occupation was that of languidly sawing boards and then mildly nailing them together again, took all his ideas from his wife, so he believed this too. She toiled, neat as a pin, along the street, both fretted with and grateful to the heat because of her rheumatism, making a call. When she thought of her destination, of her changed status in the town above her dull and quenchless sorrow, she knew a faint pride. The stroke of fate which robbed her likewise made of her an aristocrat. The Mrs. Worthingtons, the Mrs. Saunderses, All spoke to her now as one of them, as if she too rode in a car and bought a half-dozen new dresses a year. Her boy had done this for her, his absence accomplishing that which his presence had never done, could never do. Her black gown drank heat and held it in solution about her. Her cotton umbrella became only a delusion. How hot for April, she thought, seeing cars containing pliant women's bodies in cool, thin cloth passing her. Other women walking in delicate, gay shades nodded to her bent small rotundity, greeting her pleasantly. Her flat, common-sense shoes carried her steadily and proudly on. She turned a corner in the sun, through maples, was directly in her face. She lowered her umbrella to it, and remarking after a while a broken drain, and feeling an arching thrust of poorly laid concrete, she slanted her umbrella back. Pigeons in the spire were coolly remote from the heat, unemphatic as sleep, and she passed through an iron gate, following a gravelled path. The rambling facade of the rectory dreamed in the afternoon above a lawn broken by geranium beds and a group of chairs beneath a tree. She crossed grass, and the rector rose, huge as a rock, black and shapeless, greeting her. "Oh, the poor man, how bad he looks, and so old we are for this to happen to us. He was not any good, but he was my son. And now Mrs. Worthington and Mrs. Saunders and Mrs. Wardle speak to me, stopping to chat about this and that, while there's my Dewey dead. They hadn't no sons, and now his son came back and mine didn't. And how grey his face, poor man." She panted with heat, like a dog, feeling pain in her bones, and she hobbled horribly across to the grouped figures. It was because the sun was in her eyes that she couldn't see. Sun going down beyond a lattice wall covered with wisteria. Pigeons crooned, liquid gutturals from the spire, slanting like smears of paint, and the rector was saying, "This is Mrs. Powers, Mrs. Burney, a friend of Donald's. Donald, here is Mrs. Burney. You remember Mrs. Burney, she's Dewey's mother, you remember?" Mrs. Burney took a proffered chair blindly. Her dress held heat, her umbrella tripped her bonelessly, then bonelessly avoided her. The rector closed it, and Mrs. Powers settled her in the chair. She rubbed at her eyes with a black-bordered cotton handkerchief. Donald Mahone waked to voices. Mrs. Powers was saying, "How good of you to come. All Donald's old friends have been so nice to him, especially the ones who had sons in the war. They know, don't they? Oh, the poor man, and your scarred face. Madden didn't tell me your face was scarred, Donald." Pigeons like slow sleep, afternoon passing away. Dying, Mrs. Burney in her tight, hot black, the rector, huge and black and shapeless, Mrs. Burney with an unhealed sorrow, Mrs. Powers, Dick, how young, how terribly young, tomorrow must never come. Kiss me through my hair, Dick, my body flowing away from me, dividing. How ugly men are naked. Don't leave me. No, we don't love each other, we don't. Hold me close. My body's intimacy is broken, unseeing. Thank God my body cannot see. Your body is so ugly, Dick, dear Dick. Your bones, your mouth hard and shaped as bone, Richard. My body flows away. You cannot hold it. Why do you sleep, Dick? My body flows on and on. You cannot hold it. For yours is so ugly, dear Dick. You may not hear from me for some time. I will write when I can. Donald Mahone, hearing voices, moved in his chair. He felt substance he could not see, heard what did not move him at all. "Carry on, Joe." The afternoon dreamed on, unbroken. The Negro, informal in an undershirt, restrained his lawnmower and stood beneath a tree, talking to a woman across the fence. Mrs. Burney, in her rigid, unbearable black, "Mrs. Worthington speaks to me, but Dewey is dead." "Oh, the poor man, his grey face. My boy is dead, but his boy has come home with a woman. What is she doing here?" Mrs. Mitchell says, "That Saunders girl is engaged to him. She was downtown yesterday, almost naked, with the sun on her." She wiped her eyes again under inevitable spring. Donald Mahone, hearing voices. "Carry on, Joe." "I come to see how your boy's getting along, what with everything. Dewey, my boy. I miss you like the devil, Dick. Someone to sleep with? I don't know. Oh, Dick, you left no mark on me, nothing. Kiss me through my hair, Dick. It's all your ugly body, and let's don't ever see each other again. Ever. No, we won't, dear ugly Dick. Yes, that was Donald. He is dead. He is much better, thank you. Give him a few weeks' rest and he will be well again. I am so glad, she answered, pitying him, envying him. My son died a hero. Mrs. Worthington, Mrs. Saunders chat with me about nothing at all. Poor boy, don't he remember his friends at all? Yes. This was Donald, my son. Donald, don't you remember Mrs. Burney? She's Dewey's mother, you know. But not forever. I wish you all the luck and love in the world. Wish me luck, dear Dick. Donald Mahone, hearing voices. Carry on, Joe. The way that girl goes on with men, she thought exultantly. Dewey may be dead, but thank God he ain't engaged to her. Your boy's home. He'll be married soon and everything. So nice for you. So nice. There, the rector said, touching her shoulder kindly. You must come often to see him. Yes, I will come often, she replied through her black-bordered cotton handkerchief. It's so nice he come home safe and well. Some didn't. Dewey. The sun flamed slowly across the wisteria, seeking interstices. She would see Mrs. Worthington downtown now, probably. Mrs. Worthington would ask her how she was, how her husband was. My rheumatism. But I am old. Yes, when we get old. You're old too, she would think with comfortable malice. Older than me. Old. Too old for things like this to happen to us. He was so good to me, so big and strong, brave. She rose and someone handed her the cotton umbrella. Yes, I will come again to see him. Poor boy. Poor man. His face so gray. The lawnmower chattered slowly, reluctantly breaking the evening. Mrs. Burney, disturbing bees, crossed grass blindly. Someone passed her at the gate, and remarking an arching thrust of poorly laid concrete and a broken drain, she slanted her umbrella backward, shielding her neat, black-clad, airproof back. Sucking silver sound of pigeons slanting to and from the spire like smears of soft paint on a cloudless sky. The sun lengthened the shadow of the wisteria-covered wall, immersing the group chairs in cool shadow, waiting for sunset. Dick, my love, that I did not love. Dick, your ugly body breaking into mine like a burglar, my body flowing away, washing away all trace of yours. Kiss and forget me. Remember me only to wish me luck, dear ugly dead Dick. This was my son Donald. He's dead. Gilligan, crossing the lawn, said, Who was that? Mrs. Burney, the rector told him. Her son was killed. You've probably heard of him downtown. Yeah, I've heard of him. He was the one under indictment for stealing 50 pounds of sugar, and they let him go to enlist, wasn't he? There were stories. The rector's voice died away. Donald Mahone, hearing silence. You stopped, Joe. Gilligan stood near him, settling the colored glasses over his eyes. Sure, Lou. More rum? The shadow of the wall took them completely, and at last he said, Carry on, Joe. End of section 17. This recording is in the public domain. May it end war forever.